Hey, co-founder of Bullish Events. And in this video, I'm going to be walking you guys through how to find cheap in all capital letters venues for in-person events. Because one of the most common reasons that we hear at Bullish Events as to why people don't want to host in-person events is because of the cost, which is completely valid. There is some cost that comes along with hosting in-person events. That being said, there are a lot of things that you can do to keep costs incredibly low or even non-existent in some cases. So we actually view that as a false belief around live events. Of course, there are going to be some costs usually, but some people think that you're going to have to drop like an outrageous amount of money that's extremely risky and bad for the business in order to host a live in-person event. And that's just not the case, at least the way that we do it. So I'm going to be walking you through that in this video. And this is one of the main levers that we actually pull at Bullish Events. So a little context on Bullish Events: we help high ticket coaching and consulting businesses scale to 7 or 8 figures a year with live in-person events. We only do in-person events. We don't do virtual events. Sometimes we'll use virtual events to sell tickets to in-person events, but in terms of like the events that we actually market, fill, design, create, monetize, all that good stuff, it's only in-person events. And at this point, I think we've generated over $10 million in revenue through live events, and that's like direct revenue from those events. And we've had over 6,400 attendees come through our in-person events. So we have a lot of data to look at. And over the years, we've shifted our strategy to make sure that we are creating these events in a way that's very financially safe and secure for our clients. Yeah, we've designed events with $1 million budgets, and we've designed events with $1,000 budgets, and they're both amazing. Of course, when you have $1 million to spend on an event, that opens up some doors that you might not be able to explore with $1,000. But at the end of the day, both of these events were successes, and the client was very happy. So you can see there's a wide range in how much money you can spend on in-person events, which is exciting. But most people think of IRL events, and IRL means in real life. I haven't honestly. This is kind of like there's a huge rabbit hole behind the IRL event movement, but all you need to know, IRL stands for in real life events or in-person events. But most people think of resorts, hotels, convention centers, food and beverage minimums, room blocks, taxes and service charge, contracts, huge liabilities. Honestly, that's what I think of when I think of in-person events. Like, I have years of trauma and experience with these things to erase now that our philosophy has changed. But like, this is usually what people think of when they think of in-person events. But what if it didn't have to be like that? What if you could host a 100 attendee event without committing to an outrageous food and beverage minimum, or without committing to a room block? And the good news is you can. Hooray. So yeah, here is the sauce on finding cheap venues for your in-person events. So number one, start with your own network. Does someone you know own a venue that you can use? Now, I know this won't be accessible or realistic for everyone, but if you do have someone in your network that owns a venue, this is a great way to get a free or very cheap event space. And when I say like someone owning a venue, I would think of like office space, warehouses, studios, galleries, concert venues, even like co-working spaces. Any venue that you can just fit people in that doesn't feel like incredibly absurd. Maybe if it's like honestly, like a museum would work. Like, honestly, most venues would work. And what's cool about venues is if it's like weird, it kind of makes the event a little bit better. Like it like enhances the experience as long as it kind of like aligns with who your attendee and your avatar is. But we've done some pretty wacky event venues, and they're usually like pretty fun. Like, people like walk in like, oh, this is weird. Like, this is there's like graffiti on the wall, or there's like this weird mannequin in the corner, and it kind of like adds to the experience. So just really exhaust your network. And if you know somebody that owns an office, a warehouse, a studio, a gallery, a concert venue, or anywhere that you can just realistically host an event, I would definitely recommend reaching out to them, because that's like one of the biggest rules in the world of events is things are easier when it's your warm network and your warm audience, whether it's selling tickets, monetizing your event, finding speakers, finding sponsors, finding partners, finding venues. Doing these things cold, it's possible, but it's way easier when it's your warm, pre-existing audience in your network. So I would start there. Number two, if you can't find anybody in your immediate network that you can use, that you can borrow a venue, you can look at sponsorships. So sponsor spots don't always have to be paid with money. You can look for a sponsor or two to either cover the cost of the venue. So maybe you're going to spend like $5,000 on the venue. But before you do that, you go find two sponsors that pay $2,500 each to cover the cost of the venue, or the sponsor can provide a venue. So an example of this would be finding a sponsor that has their own office. In exchange for using their office for your event, you make them a main event sponsor and you give them some time to talk about their service to your audience. So you can kind of like, hey, if you want to give us your venue for free, we'll let you talk to our audience and our attendees. You can like promote your services as long as it's not like overly pitchy. You know, you can kind of like work it into like a workshop or like make it still value driven for the attendees and the audience. But yeah, that some sort of exchange like that is very realistic, and it's a great way to save cost on finding event venues for your events. And finally, Peerspace. All right, moving on to Peerspace. Now, I'm sure you've heard of Peerspace before, maybe you haven't, but I actually really enjoy this tool for finding event venues, and I'm actually going to open it up and just show you guys how it works real quick. Let my face load in down here. Perfect. So just going to show you what it looks like. So say we're going to do a workshop, which is pretty standard for high-ticket coaching businesses. Then let's do Dallas, Texas, because we're doing an event in Dallas in a few weeks. And it's kind of top of mind. When we're going to do, let's do like February 12th. I like it. And if you're going to do a multi-day event, I believe on Peerspace, you have to book it like 3 days individually or 2 days individually. So we're just going to start with 1 day right now just to show you how it works. And then all these venues pop up and you can kind of go and just scroll through. So for those of you that are like familiar with event spaces, like you can see some of these prices are actually really fair. $250, of course, before taxes. Like taxes probably adds like another $100, but for a 20-person event, you can do it for like $350. Like that's pretty damn good. You can see there's tons of options. You can like go around on this map down here too and like see different parts of Dallas. Like maybe you want to do it in South Dallas and you can kind of see there's a couple venues popping up there. And then if you want to get really fancy with it, you can come up here into these different filters. Let's say 51 to 100 attendees. You can kind of see what the venues are looking like there. So even like right here, 75 guests for $876 before taxes is pretty good. You know, we're used to committing to $5, $10, $15, $20,000 contracts with venues, and this is like a much more approachable way. Even right here, $986 for a 100-person venue before taxes. So let me see if I can actually figure out what the taxes are going to be. Total before taxes. I'm not going to request a book, but you can assume it's going to add like another $100 to $200 in taxes. So just over $1,000 for a 100-person event for all day is pretty reasonable. So this is Peerspace. That's how it works. Obviously, you guys can go and use it for the whatever city you're going to be using for your events. But I like it. We found a lot of venues on Peerspace for really cheap prices. Obviously, some cities are going to have better options than others, but I would highly recommend using Peerspace. And then if you guys want to, there's a few other options that you can use aside from Peerspace. Two other options I haven't used, but I've gotten recommendations is EventUp and SpacePal. And I was playing around with them. I haven't used them for like an actual event, but I was playing around with them before this video. And I think Peerspace is a little better, but maybe EventUp and SpacePal are good for like different cities. The cities I was looking in, it just didn't provide very many options, and the options weren't that good. They weren't that cheap. But try out all three of these: Peerspace, EventUp, and SpacePal, and you should be able to find a cheap venue for your event. So that's if you can't find anybody in your network that owns a venue and you don't really want to go the sponsorship route. It is a little bit of a work because you have to go find sponsors if it's cold sponsors, and you have to go and like build that relationship. If they're warm sponsors, you have to negotiate. So it could be worth it, but if you don't want to do those first two, Peerspace, EventUp, and SpacePal are really good options. And finally, you can use agent mode on ChatGPT. So this is far from perfect right now. It's probably going to be really good in like a year or two. But another way to find cheap venues, as always, with chat will perform better with better prompts. So be specific about what you want and what your price range is. So here's an example prompt that I've used on events before. I kind of changed some of the details just for this video, but I've used this exact prompt to find event venues for previous events. So you are an expert event venue finder with 20 plus years of experience. You pay extreme attention to detail, and your strength is finding amazing high quality venues for low cost. I'm hosting an event in Dallas, Texas, and I need your help finding a venue. Here are the event details. Avatar, real estate professionals with a portfolio over $1 million. Dates, November 10th to 12th, 2025. Attendees, 75 to 100. Audiovisual needs, microphone, speaker, TV, projector. Location, max 20 miles within or from the Dallas airport. I like to do events close to airports just so it's convenient for the attendees. And important, I can't spend more than $500 a day on the venue, so only find me venue options that cost less than $500 a day. Please find me 20 venues that match this criteria. Provide links to each venue and a phone number if possible. So this is a prompt that we use. Obviously, you can add more detail about the event. But what I like to do is just get the list first. So I already did this search up here, and I didn't do the link thing. I added that after because I like to have links to the venue website so I can go look at them. But for this one, I didn't do that. So make sure when you're using agent mode, have give you links to like what it finds. But you can see here. So first is like community/civic spaces. It gives you 10 options. Church and faith-based facilities, I think 10 more options. And then commercial meeting spaces, 5 options. Co-working and training rooms, 4 options. So it gives you like, what is this, like 30 venue options. And then if I had the website links, I could go and click into each one and look at them. But it does kind of require a little bit more work. In ChatGPT, especially agent mode, I've learned it's not very good at actually like finding the real price of venue. So it'll tell you like, oh, this venue is $500 a day. Then you'll go and like talk to them or like submit an RFP or go look on the website, and it's actually like $1,000 per day. So it's getting better, but at least it gives you a place to start. That's like when I'm finding venues. It's just good to have a place to start. So now I have like 30 venues here where I can go look and have conversations and get stuff going. So I like to kind of intermix ChatGPT and Peerspace, and then usually if I work with both of those tools, I'm able to find a pretty cheap venue for the event. But yeah, that kind of wraps up this video. That was the last one, agent mode. So just a summary: ways to find cheap venues for your in-person events. First, get the All right, and that wraps up the video. So just a little bit of a review. This was how to find cheap venues for your in-person events. Big false belief: you don't have to spend a lot of money on in-person events. You can do them very, very cheaply. That's kind of one of the big levers we pull at Bullish Events. Like, we're willing to spend the money if the client wants to, but if someone comes to us and they're like, hey, we want to do an event, but we want to do it very cheap and safe, so it's not like extremely risky to our business, we can make that happen as well. Strategy number 1 is using your own network to find a venue. Number 2 is using sponsorships. Number 3 is Peerspace, EventUp, or SpacePal. And number 4 is agent mode on ChatGPT. Now, if you're a high-ticket coach or consultant that's currently hosting events, or you want to get started hosting live events, but you just don't know where to start, I would love to invite you to our community, Bullish Events. So inside this community, we're essentially building a mastermind for coaches and consultants that are in the live event space. That being said, if you haven't started hosting live events, but you want to get there someday, there is a lot of content in here for you. So just to give you a little showcase, this is inside the classroom. We have some event tools. We have an event masterclass. We used to sell this for around $1,500 to $2,000. I think at one point we sold it for $3,000. But we decided to just give it away for free, just to provide value to our potential clients. So if you haven't started hosting live events, or even if you have and you just want to learn more and see how you can, optimize your events, we have this whole program in here for free. And then you can see we also have the community of people just posting about their live events or asking questions. And Ethan and I are in here as well, just posting about the events that we're doing, what we're learning, what's working, all that good stuff. So we're essentially just building a mastermind for high-ticket coaches and consultants that are hosting live events for their business. If that is something that you would be interested in, I'm going to link it down in the description. Obviously, no pressure, but it's completely free, and we love to have you in there. But yeah, thank you so much for watching the video, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.